Take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. Right. So last week we were talking about this idea of substitution, and the section we were reading was called the substitute reality. And it's very important that we understand, got to do one thing here. All right. That we have literally substituted ourselves for God. And I found this quote, we don't need to go to because I'm just going to read one line. The separation started with the dream the father was deprived of his effects and powerless to keep them since. He was no longer their creator. In the dream, the dreamer made himself. So when we chose for separation, we literally chose against what we are and against what God is. And we made God void and, how did it say, powerless. And we took on this dream of which we dream ourselves. Okay. And in the section, it's on text 372. In the text, paragraph 1. We did read some of this last week, but we'll just kind of rehash some of it. So 372 in the text, paragraph 1. So the first line is to substitute is to accept instead. And I read the definition of substitute from the dictionary is a person or a thing acting or serving in place of another. So when we chose the separation, we began to act and replace the other being God, and the Son of God then took over as the creator, or as the Course talks about it, as the maker of a new world, of which we now then projected into the world. And we have this dream where I believe I am the character in the dream, and I forget that it was the cause was that we chose for separation instead of oneness and love. And once that occurred, we now began to live in a world with sunglasses on. So literally everything, everywhere we turn, we're looking through a lens that is not our truth. And we don't realize we're doing this because we've been walking around doing this since our first breath. But the answer is we've accepted this reality that is not our true reality. He goes on to say, to substitute is to choose between renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor of the other. We chose this decision, or made this decision by choosing it. And as a result of that, we have renounced our true sonship. And this is what we've accepted as our truth. And then in paragraph number 4, he explains that one error, in paragraph 4, line 4, that one error which brought truth to illusion, infinity to time, life to death, was all you ever made. And he's trying to help us understand that that was only one choice. It was one mistake. But as a result of that one error, instead of having truth, we now experience illusion. Instead of infinity, we now experience time. And instead of life, we experience death. And he says, and that was all you ever made. And he makes it sound like this light little fluffy thing here. And as we know, we're so caught up in it that it seems pretty heavy, like pretty valuable, very much a part of who we are. And yet he's saying it's just a dream. you believe it's real. And as a result of that, you're living through the lens as though it was real. Okay, so we're now going to start with paragraph number 6. That was the first projection. Actually, let me read 5 because that'll make more sense. If you may be surprised to hear how very different this reality, different is reality from what you see. Well, we don't even know that reality is very different than what we see. All we know is the experience of what we see. You do not realize the magnitude of that one error. And also be very aware that Jesus is very adamant in the Course that we did not sin. We simply made a mistake, and that mistake is considered as an error. But when you have an error, you can fix it or make it right. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it, a world of total unreality had to emerge. And I like to think of it as, like a big balloon filled with everything of the possibilities of the world, but it's just a balloon, and we can pop that balloon and all of it will disappear. But nothing you have seen begins to show you, I forgot a couple lines there. What else could come of it? Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough as you begin to look at them. So we are afraid to look at them because we, on some level, know we made this choice. And because we're so addicted to the balloon or the illusion, we think that looking at that is in opposition instead of support of what we're used to. And in actuality, it is just trying to help us recognize you made a mistake. This is the result. And what is this? A world of duality. And as he said, a world of illusion, time and death instead of truth, infinity, and life. But we are living in this world where somebody says, well, there is no such thing as death. And we look at we look and scratch our head and think, what could that possibly be? What, huh? And in truth, in reality, there is no such thing as death because we live in eternity. Its fragmented aspects are fearful enough as you begin to look at them. But nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, which seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions, and to force you to make further substitutions. So when we choose for that separation, we now are cast out of heaven, or at least that's the experience we have. The truth is, God says nothing happened and we can come back anytime we want, but we don't realize that that option is there.
There's no such thing as death because we're not bodies.
Correct.
Right? There's no body at all.
That is correct. But again, look at how much we identify with being the body. When we can't just pretend I'm not, you can walk around.
Fear that's generated from just the thought of the word. It's just a word.
Yep, exactly. And once again, the ego part of our mind set this up so that we would stay encompassed in this thought system and never go back and remember who we really were. And we did that in a way that's obviously very captivating, that everything around us supports that I am this and this world is real. And it was what the ego did to perpetuate this thought system. So the Course comes along and says, well, wait a minute, that's all an illusion. You really want to come back to where you always were and is still there, but you have accepted this and covered this over so that you're not having the opportunities to experience. But as you keep asking to do that.
The system, the way things are.
Okay. When we have the awareness, there's another choice. We can then begin to access that, which is exactly what the Course is offering to us.
Because it's to start judgment on God.
Correct. Well, and not just on God, but it's our judgment on ourselves, because I am God, I am the Son of God, and all the attributes he has are equally mine. except for him being the creator, which the Son cannot create. And I'm not talking about Mary Ann, I'm talking about the Son, yeah.
That's your, so. The judgment is what made the problem, is what I think, the judgment, just the judgment. That God was something that we could be, or God wasn't good enough, or whatever the judgment was.
Yep, and we gotten into a lot of trouble ever since, I guess you could say.
Well, we're stuck with the judgment until we ask for help. We're stuck with that judgment. That's what
Yes.
Seems like we did the right thing by judging, by changing it,
Right,
and then we're stuck with that.
right.
and Think because it's something that we kind of like negated God entirely.
Oh,
That
definitely.
concept of everlasting and all that concept went out the window.
Yep.
And so how to get that back, we're in the middle of reality and judgment is.
And we're not going to get it back as long as we're playing in judgment. And that's why we're being asked so frequently to observe all the times you find yourself judging and attacking and so on.
Right.
And because that's what keeps the roller coaster ride going.
And it would seem that he wouldn't help us because, we made a decision, so.
Yep.
What do we think he's going to do? And we can't really grasp that or even really trust it very well.
Nope. And we can't ask him to do what we chose to do. We have to be the ones that make the choice to go back.
Yeah.
He just lets us have our free will because
Is it
that's part of
helpful-
its essence.
Is it helpful to think of ourselves with thought in the mind of God?
I guess so, but understand, even with the concept of the thought in the mind of God, the thought of the mind of God is literally love. And we turned our back against love and made our own storyline, which is the opposite of love. And the Course actually speaks of that all thoughts of the ego are not real. The only real thought is the thought of love. And as Gloria, Ken's wife, used to say, once we made the choice for the separation, we now thunk, we don't really think anymore. So you're not going to think yourself out of this is another good way to look at this as well. Yeah. All right, so again, but nothing you have seen begins to show you the enormity of the original error, which seemed to cast you out of heaven, to shatter knowledge into meaningless bits of disunited perceptions and to force you to make further substitutions. And I like when he uses the word seems to cast you out of heaven, because we didn't really get cast out of heaven. We just think we got cast out of heaven. And when he talks about to force you to make further substitutions, what that means is because I'm in the separated state now, and I'm constantly trying to fill myself up with a replacement of God. So then I look into the world for other people, drugs, alcohol, cigarette shopping, whatever it is that is my substitute. I continue to look for those to fill up that emptiness that having left oneness brings to me, never realizing that what I really want to do is go back to that memory in my mind and reconnect with what and who I really am. And again, we're so accustomed to looking at everything through the lens of the ego, and we don't realize that actually we're the ones that set up the sunglasses. And then we forgot that we were the ones that did that. We forgot we were the ones that put the sunglasses on. So we walk into the world or step into the world at our birth, and we've got the sunglasses on. And of course, I'm going to look at everything in my experience through that lens, never knowing that it was really my choice to put the sunglasses on in the first place. And all the effects of that sunglass are coming from this one cause. Yeah. I think.
Well, first off, it tells us what to do in sentence 1 of paragraph 3. But the issue that I have is I don't remember waking up one day and saying, oh, I think I'll separate from God.
But you see, you didn't wake up as your individual self. The Son of God did this, accepted it, and then realized, oh my gosh, what did I do? I killed off God to exist. And it couldn't tolerate the pain of that experience. So rather than go back to God because he was afraid to go back to God, the way he solved the problem was to then project into the world of bodies and have all the focus be on bodies and the solving of the problem within the context of the acceptance of bodies. So when little Bert popped into the world, little Bert already popped into the awareness or the consciousness of the separated state. So no, you're not going to ever remember, well, probably likely not going to remember that major choice that took place of the Son of God that has been hidden behind this curtain, because the way we can pull this off is to keep this from our memory.
I mean, I get all that. I think what I was trying to say is that I think that I'll take responsibility for separating from God.
Right.
However, when it occurred, I was not conscious of the decision.
But you see, okay, go for it.
And so I had no choice as I developed into adolescence or whatever, to defend my decision that I wasn't even aware of. And I just spiraled down the rabbit hole. Then one day you wake up and, you know, you try this and you try that, and you say, wait a minute, there must be a better way.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of people who.
No.
Even come
Well,
to
look at
that.
how many people are in this room.
Right. Okay, and I would agree with what you're saying, except for it took place before Bert showed up. So this has nothing to do with any choices or decision Bert has ever had or not had in his life. We came in with this belief system.
And if I may, don't mind, I think also I'm just listening to Bruce Lipton.
Okay.
And this morning. And he, would you say it loud, please? Oh, I'm sorry, I was listening this morning to Bruce Lipton. Yes, and, he was talking about how, you know, we were born and in this world, and it's, you know, the first 7 years of our life
Right.
is pretty much shaped, and we are shaped, our identity rather is shaped
Right.
by parents and, you know, ultimately caregivers and peers, you know, any experiences we've had.
Sure.
And so what I think kind of maybe what's happened is ever since that first separation occurred, it's just, you know, come down, you know, like the story of the Tony was just talking the other day, where this woman would cut the head off the turkey and she made her turkey for dinner.
Oh, right.
Oh.
So
They
that-
cut
that-
the ends off to put it in the
Cut the
pan,
ends off
right?
in the
Yeah.
pan. That, you know, it's like, why do you do that? Well, my mother did it, you know,
Right.
or my grandmother did it, my great-grand. When they find out, they ask her and she's like, oh, I just didn't have a pan big enough.
Right, yep.
And so I think those 7 years and even later, we pick all of that up from parents, not that they,
Right.
you know, they're doing the best,
Sure.
you know, that what that's what they've been taught.
Right.
And so that separation starts almost immediately.
But see, that's what I'm trying to say, guys. The separation took place before you showed up on the planet.
Snowball.
The body was made to hide the belief system of the separation, and the entire world was made to support that belief system. So it's already in place. And then we pop in, and then we have the experiences, and then we say it was because of the church, or because of my mother, or because of the school, or because of whatever took place. And yes, those things within the context of the belief system of illusion continue to support that storyline until, as Bert was saying, one day you go, there's got to be another way. And the Course talks about there's a limit to how much pain we can tolerate. And that's the moment when we start looking for something different. But everything up to and before that did not start with something you did or said or didn't do or say. It started before you took your first breath. And it was a setup that we puked into and it was fully engaged before we ever showed up. And the reason why I want, and I'll get to both of you, the reason why I think it's so helpful to really get this is because we have spent so much time and energy in our lives with, oh, if I hadn't done this, or I could have done this, or I should have done that, or if I was born in another family, or, things would be different. And the bottom line is no. The Son of God made, as he's saying, a terrible error. And it made all of this occur, but the problem is that the error isn't real. And we can now do something about it. And as long as we're playing over here, trying to solve it, figure it out, change it, do whatever, we're just playing in this arena and circling around and around and around instead of stop. Oh my gosh. This is how, and he's saying this made the truth to illusion, infinity to time, and life to death. That's a pretty big encompassing belief system. And again, totally in opposition to who and what we really are, of which it's got us by the tail and it's wrapping us around the room in all different ways, all different forms, and all different, concepts. But we then look at, what was it that whacked me around the room? It was because my mom did this or the church did. No, it's not because of that. It's because the Son of God made that choice that has not brought us what we wanted. And now we have a recourse to make another choice. All right, Bert.
It's not the choice that's the problem, it's the belief in the choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. And you gotta
Correct.
get back to the secret dream, which the world's dream is just covering over
Yep.
what's really going on.
Yep. And, the chart with the hero of the dream. We spent all our lives the hero of the dream. My mother did this, the church did that. Oh, I had a nice thing that happened here. But they're all have to do with my acceptance of the belief that this character is who I am, and I am being affected by the experiences of the world. And as I pointed out last week, there's a little bed up here. We need to awaken from this dream and all of this disappears.
And we're afraid of that.
Well, and we're afraid of that.
Along with that
Big
disappearing,
deal.
This disappears. we
Correct.
think.
Right.
Which-
We're under the impression we can think our way out of this.
Oh, gosh,
situation,
big time.
And we're asked to drop that idea.
Yes.
And come from
Correct. Yes.
experience.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the key word.
So each of our bodies was born into this belief.
Absolutely.
And
not just-
eventually we got fed up with it and started. to
There
look
you
for
go.
something else.
Yes. Correct.
And some of us stumbled onto this.
Correct. Good way to put it. Yep.
I mean, I had no, I mean,
Yep.
I just got born in this.
Right.
My body did.
Yes, exactly. And I know, Barb, you asked the question of, who was the who that made the choice and blah, blah, blah. It was this. This is what this is dreaming, of which one of the characters is called Barb and one's called Mary Ann and one's called everybody that's here. Okay. And then we get totally involved. And again, the hero of the dream, we spend all of our time and energy evaluating and trying to figure out based on the fact that I am the hero of my dream. When the answer is up here, that has nothing to do with any of this. Okay, all right. Did you have anything, Bert? Or are you good?
I understand everything that you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay,
However, I'm born contaminated. All right?
You weren't even born.
Okay,
That's a whole nother-
That's the issue that.
Yeah.
So when the terminology in the course keeps saying and now I associate that with my body.
And I know, and that's normal,
Okay.
initially, especially, yes, yes.
Okay,
That's what most people.
Sure.
so, the I is not aware of the fact that I made this decision, and in fact, I didn't make this decision. I was contaminated at birth. But to me, that still suggests that there's something else out there. And so I go back to the physics and the dark energy that anything that ever happened, everything that is happening, and anything that could happen is within the confines of this energy. And somehow my body, which I know doesn't exist in the
Right.
course would suggest, takes form. I'm contaminated at birth. I get it. And then there's a series of events that occur that as a child, I feel the necessity to defend that decision,
Right.
even though it wasn't my decision. And the reality of it was, for me, it became a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
It was the best that I could do with the information that I had available at that particular time. Now,
Right
I
on.
carried that childhood belief system into adulthood. When I said there must be a better way,
Mhm.
then I started to try to reverse that process.
Right.
But see, the confusion that I have is when the course says none of this exists, I'm just having a really hard time wrapping my arms around that.
Right. Right. And even those of us that may use our mouth and say those words, and we're starting to perhaps intellectually get that, none of us believe that. Right, because everything about everything that I see, hear, feel, touch, smell, everything. I wake up in the morning and I look at my hand. I'm here, I'm sitting, laying in a bed. I'm this. Everything supports it's an illusion. And what the course is saying is, yes, that is your experience. But as you start to become aware of this, are you willing to even take, well, I think I know this is real. Show me how I can see and experience this through your lens of being.
And so I'll just offer this and then I'll shut up. The premise of the course is forgiveness.
Mhm.
So when I become aware, the only strategy that I have is to forgive myself. It's just not my fault.
Okay, but understand that the word forgiveness in the course means that none of this is real.
Compare this. Forgiving your brother out there is actually forgiving yourself, but not birth.
So
The
if none
dreamer
of this
is
is
a dream.
real, then why are we here studying the course? And why are we proposing that we were contaminated at birth? Because there is no such thing.
But you believe you are here.
Compare your daytime dream to your
Right.
nighttime dream.
Yeah, there's
Exactly.
that.
You don't go examining your nighttime dream and saying all this baloney to yourself.
You just
Yes,
go, oh, had a
it's-
dream.
It's still in my mind.
Mhm.
That's where the nighttime dream came from. Well, this
Right.
daytime dream is exactly the same as the nighttime dream, except we don't know that.
Correct.
And the beauty of the course for me is I don't have to have the realization that I'm not a body that comes with the practice.
Right,
But
exactly.
I can have a realization of right here in this moment, that what I'm thinking and believing is not real.
And I would
My
say,
perceptions
right.
aren't real.
right. And I would say, when we begin working on the course, begin with the things that really get your craw. I mean, darn well you're not too pleased with those, okay? I'd be glad if those were an illusion, right? And begin with the ones that are that way. And then you're more willing to say, okay, Holy Spirit, I'm going to give this one to you because, you keep telling me there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no guilt, there's no sin. And boy, where I'm sitting, that's not my experience. Show me through your lens. And as Rose was saying, as you keep working with this, then the more subtle ways where in the past, I didn't even know it was an irritation or upset, start to come to the surface and go, oh, well, that one's kind of not right where I wanted either. And you start to not just trust that the Holy Spirit has a better answer than the one you're experiencing, but you want to walk in that direction because you recognize when I really step out of the way, something comes to the surface that is not of me, that is in a much better place than my experience here.
It is real.
And that is real, yes.
The one secret is you can't do this alone.
And you can't do this alone. You cannot think yourself, figure yourself, or any way else. This is, I don't know. Holy Spirit, show me. And as long as there is any manipulation of me, and we all do it, so don't feel bad if you catch yourself there, there's any manipulation of I'm going to figure this out or I'm going to do this different, you're in charge again. And it's about who's in charge. Is it the ego or the Holy Spirit? There's no other choice. All
I
right.
guess the reality of it for me is this.
Okay.
When the Course tells me that I made this decision to separate, you've been misspoken. I'm associating that with me
Correct.
as
Understood.
the body.
Right. That's your
And-
mistake.
Stop right there.
Okay,
But that's hard to do.
It
but
is.
all I hear is shame and blame.
No.
And
No.
I'm having a hard time
And that's
finding
exactly.
a love in the shame.
But that's exactly what I'm trying to undo, because we take this personally. I think I did something to make this happen. Mary Ann is just a character in the Son of God's dreaming mind. And it's a mind that's dreaming of duality, of exile from what it really is. So when we catch ourselves feeling guilty, stop and go, wait, how could the Son of God feel guilty? But I do feel guilty. I can't pretend that away, right? I mean, how many times of our lives have we felt guilty or shameful or I did something wrong, whatever it may be? That's inborn in my breath. And this is saying, that's your dream. That's the illusion. Do you really want to continue to play in that place? Or do you want to stop and say, wait, show me through, but let me bubble up what truth is.
I understand.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is, the way that the Course is written, it uses the word.
I agree.
And I associate I
With me. Yeah.
after birth, the body.
Yeah.
And so when
Exactly.
it says, I made the decision to separate from God,
I agree.
I feel like somebody's got their finger in my chest and they're poking me.
Right.
And I'm a bad little boy.
Right. And that's
why I always ask. who's
right.
that?
Right. Yep.
It's not.
The Course is
it's
always
been-
talking.
It's finally been acknowledged clearly.
Yes.
It's the Son of God who thinks it's separated from God. It's not Barbara.
Right.
All these years. I'm thinking,
And Bert,
I is Barbara.
Okay, so as it relates
it's
to
not
teachings of
over.
the Course, I have a
It's familiar. yeah.
misconception.
Correct.
or I'm misusing the word I.
correct. And we, right. And we've,
Thinks it's
Okay,
separated.
so who is
Is
the
there
I?
anything like this?
The dreamer of the
This or not, because there's only one. There's two eyes, so I think. But there's only one, so it's all I, we're all I. There's the big eye. Everything is I. Big eye is who we really are.
and Bert, just to set you straight, when I check out or when I finally meet Jesus, I'm going to say, why did you put it that way? Because that's very, very confusing. And I'm sure there's millions of people out there studying the Course that have not even been introduced to that awareness, which I think that should have been on page 1 personally.
Ken says He's always talking.
Well, I know he
to
does. I realize that that's
No,
not what it
you.
is, yes,
You
but-
were the dreamer
correct,
that got covered over by the
Correct.
by the
Right.
ego thought system.
right,
Yeah.
right,
What made us all mindless. And
right,
the whole ego's object is to keep us mindless so that the dreamer does not go back
absolutely,
to the right mind and make
Correct.
another choice.
correct,
It's meeting the mind where it thinks it is.
Right.
Right.
In a
Right.
body.
okay, Jason has had his hand up for at least a half an hour.
No problem. From what I'm hearing, I feel like this point is moot. Because we're all, participating in this tiny mad idea every second of every day
Mhm.
anyway. So
Mhm.
why are we trying to,
Figure out which is which, yeah.
well, why are we trying to figure out, ultimately responsible?
Well, I would say one of the reasons, and Bert certainly brought this up, is
Shame, I
if,
guess,
if,
would be
if
part of it.
I think he's talking to me and he tells me all this stuff, how could I avoid feeling guilty? All that does is bring up the level of guilt to a higher level. When you recognize this, Mary Ann's just a silly puppet being operated by whatever choice is in place. And if I'm experiencing, as I believe I am the puppet, any guilt, sin, or fear, or any of those other shame or whatever, it means I'm being operated by the puppeteer that is the I that chose to separate from the love of God.
Right, so I mean, if I look at the tiny mad idea, I still want to be God.
Well, as
I
long as
still
you
wanna
want,
be independent, I still want to be
Yes.
unique and special and different.
yes, correct,
That's something I can carry on right now. I mean,
Correct.
I'm still
You are.
definitely, I'm
Yeah.
definitely there.
Yep.
It has
Yep.
nothing to do with, the Son of God.
correct,
It shows the choice. I have two choices. One of them is the ego.
Yep.
And the other is the Holy Spirit. I'm constantly choosing the ego.
Right.
If I, some miracle, I slip in and get the Holy Spirit on my side, maybe I stand a chance, maybe. If I fall down, I'll ask him to help me get up. That's all I got. I'm still a puppet, being operated on the choice for the ego thought system, which is totally insane. That's why I'm insane, because I mind melded with it.
I think I'm it, yeah.
yeah, I think I'm
That's it.
it. And really what I'm, trying to help get us to understand, as long as I'm taking it personally as that guilt, sin, and fear and shame will encompass me. But as we can step up and realize I'm just being operated by that thought system, I couldn't be anything other than that, because that is what the thought system that's running the show looks like. And then it becomes a little bit easier to recognize, well, if that's happening here, then it's coming from here. And if we take the idea of the movie projector in a movie theater, and we all know there's nobody on the screen.
Okay, I feel like the longer I do this, the more confused I get. So for the benefit, not try to
Right,
control the meeting or whatever. What I'm getting from this is I
Keep
have
it simple.
perception of the I now. And when I really look at it, when I look at the body as the I, my thinking process is horizontal. When I look at the I
Beautiful.
as the one, now I'm looking vertical.
beautiful.
I just got
That's
one
great.
other question
Sure.
that I was not shut up, is I was listening to a Ken video, and one of the things that Ken mentioned in passing in this video was the word Jesus, as it's used in the course, because this has been a problem for me when I tried a couple times to be a Christian. The word Jesus, as it's used in the course, is not the same as the word Jesus as it's used in mainstream Christianity.
Yeah.
Correct.
How are we using the
Yeah.
word Jesus in this course? Because I've been doing this for 20 years and I didn't realize that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, that's a wonderful explanation of the process of learning the course. This is a big book. We don't walk in the door, eat this all up in one day and have all this information. It doesn't work that way. As you keep working and practicing and listening and, you know, doing it, slowly the layers of stuff that you couldn't see initially come to the surface that were always there. And I assure you, as you look more from this I place instead of the I place, you'll see that none of those words in the course are really directed as I'm bad or I've done something wrong, because you're looking from a different understanding of what the course said all along, but that was where we were. And slowly we become aware of the many, you know, many awarenesses that were always in front of us.
Specifically.
Oh, Jesus of
when
the
we
course.
use the
Okay.
word Jesus within
All
the
right.
confines of the course, what does that mean to me as a student?
Okay.
That's different from my mainstream.
Okay,
Christianity?
for starters, there's no sin. That kind of wipes that whole storyline out about the Jesus of the Bible. Jesus is really simply the representation of love expressed or extended into the world.
Okay, all right.
No
Yeah.
different than the Holy Spirit.
Right, it's basically the same, yes, the Holy Spirit.
Does the course use the word Jesus?
Yeah, in a number, not a lot, but it's in there, you know, a handful of times, yes.
And that may be why Ken made a point.
Right, yeah.
of-
Right, yeah. And I would say the the Jesus of then is really being expressed in the course. And the Jesus that we read about in the Bible was the ego's interpretation of the storyline of what Jesus did and said back then.
Yeah, okay, so
All right.
all of this time, when the course uses the word Jesus.
You were,
I bring,
exactly,
you know,
Yes.
sin, fear, guilt into, and I'm saying,
Yep.
wait a minute.
yes,
I mean, that's not consistent.
not
with
very
the
helpful.
course.
Yep,
That's
Yeah.
what you were brought into.
right,
Right.
What
exactly.
you are used to in the Christian world. Jesus was here to condemn. And he wasn't.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Heaven and hell.
Yeah, but realize that we made that person and God in our image, which was the ego image.
Right.
If you read the Bible and can go through this, the first 3 chapters in the Bible are nothing but condemnation.
Yes, yes,
Now look, God comes along and says to Adam, now look what you've done. And because of what you've done, you shall experience da, 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 da.
Right.
You really believe God said that?
Yep.
God of love said his love,
Yeah.
really said that?
yes, right. But, and, you know, those of us, which is most of us, that were living from this place would hear those words and agree with it. Because I think I am a piece of shit. As we begin to understand the course on higher and higher levels, and we begin to align more and more with this, how could I possibly be a piece of shit or the home of evil, sin, and darkness? But it is my mind that is reading the words through the lens of the ego that interprets it from that point of view. And as we begin to awaken more, we're going to see the words on these pages mean something totally different.
I remember going, not long after I started coming to Marianne's class, and, you know, I had my own beliefs about Jesus too. I was raised Catholic. And, I remember, you know, having this awareness one day that I have to ask Jesus for help when I have all these beliefs about him.
Right.
It was a real, catch-22. I gotta ask him for help, but I have all these thoughts and beliefs about him.
Right.
You know, but you know what? I kept doing it. I kept going there. And I'm not saying it's 100%, but man, it's so much
Yeah.
Okay, so
different for
the
me.
word that I used was, I have a lot of confusion.
Mm,
So, I mean, there's clarity now within those 2 words.
Right.
And I see that I'm bringing my perception of those words into the present moment. And
Perfect.
that's the way the
Yeah.
course is not using them
Right,
that way.
right,
So
exactly.
this is very helpful.
Good, I'm glad. And I remember one time being at the foundation where Ken asked all of us to go back to our rooms and really spend some time with our relationship with Jesus. And it was a very powerful experience. And you have to also remember as well, I don't know what I could point out with that, guess nothing, that you see, even Jesus cannot be seen as somebody here and me down here. See, when I'm seeing oneness, we're all the same. And Jesus very specifically states that at the beginning of the course, I'm simply your elder brother. You and I are the same. We'll talk about wiping out the belief system of, spirituality as most of us were brought up in religion. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Even in the Bible, he says these things.
Right,
that
you will
see
do,
that I
yeah.
do, you will do
Right.
that.
Right.
So
And
that
and
was-
those, right. But there's a whole, it's a mixed bag. Yeah, there's, yeah.
Verification,
Yep.
And then it was a long time ago, so I'm
Right.
sure words still
Right.
the same, like,
Exactly.
I learned that, hell or sin and one of the, it's like if you get a, Strong's Concordance, which is
Right.
the dictionary from back then. I think a lot of the misinterpretations come
Sure.
from just different.
Or
meaning
ego
of
just
words
reads it from-
and-
Well,
Or
or
we
our
just read
egos,
what we-
that's
we
exactly what.
cherry-pick it as well.
You
Yep.
go read the King James Version, and you'll read it entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
There's
the,
2 places specifically in the manual for teachers on page 58. It says, does Jesus have a special place in healing? And then in the clarification of terms, page 87, the term is Jesus Christ. And one thing it says is Christ, no, what is it? The name of Jesus is the name of one who was a man, but saw the face of Christ in all his brothers and remembered God.
and again, is that the image that most of us were brought up with? Hell no. Not only that, but even if we looked at Jesus, like he was like the special one and he's hanging on the cross over there. Why should I try to be good if that's what's going to, be very aware underlying these are thoughts and concepts that, had to disturb all of us.
Course also says, teach only love, because that's what you are.
But that means I'm here.
Right.
Yeah. And if I'm here, I would automatically teach love, just like,
You wouldn't have to think about it.
No.
Okay.
exactly, just like when I have the belief of the ego, I can't do anything but teach the opposite of love. Okay, get that, guys, that's important. Here, no love, here, love, automatically.
Religious love.
Right, well, yeah, the word called love, yeah. And so again, the recognition that I am not expressing, that reflection of love in the world is a wonderful piece of information. Because now I know I got a problem, and it's not me that's got the problem, it's that I believe in the separated state of God. And the beautiful part of the course is when I'm ready, I can choose differently. And then that will align me to what Jason was saying, teach only love, for that is what you are, because I'll be a lighthouse. It's not Mary Ann deciding what's going on. That light just will flow through me. And, but just a few minutes ago, something came up and I wanted to get this point and then we'll take a break, of the idea of, we know when we go to a movie theater, there's nothing on the screen but a reflection of what that piece of film behind the or in front of the light is reflecting on the screen. So I think I'm one of the characters on the screen. There is nothing on the screen. What the situation is the film in front of the light. And I identify by the believing I'm the projection on the screen that's already marred and, covered over. It's shaded. And what I
I'm a
need to
picture of
do.
An inward condition, period. It's all
Exactly.
showing me what's going on in the mind. And we
Correct.
are all sharing the same one dream.
That is correct. That is correct.
Couple pages further on, there is nothing outside of you.
That is correct. That is correct. And, you know, again, we can read those words, but is that my experience? And the answer, of course, is no. But you begin with where you are, you start to take in the words he's speaking, and you start to say, well, okay, that's what he's experiencing. Maybe I want to try some of that, because this obviously isn't working too well.
The way we've taught ourselves isn't very exhilarating,
Yes.
believe me.
Well, it's exhilarating. It's just not very healed. All right, let's take a All right, guys, we're gonna get started. All right, so we are gonna start with paragraph number 6 in 372. That was the first projection of air outward. The world arose to hide it and became the screen on which it was projected and drawn between you and the truth. For truth extends inward where the idea of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. Do you really think it's strange that a world in which everything is backward and upside down arose from this projection of air? It was inevitable, for truth brought to this could only remain within quiet and take no part in all the mad projection by which the world was made. Call it not sin, but madness, for such it was, and so it still remains. Invest it not with guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality, and above all, do not be afraid of it. And this is a powerful little paragraph.
You got it.
So that was the first projection of air outward.
Walk around with.
Correct.
All day long.
And again, think of the word projection just before the break. The idea I'm projecting onto the screen what's in the mind. And that's where we think it's now in the world, but it's really remains in the mind.
That's the idea we took on ourselves.
Text 372 or 373, you said? It's paragraph 6. All right, so the world arose to hide it. The world's purpose was to hide the thought system.
The secret dream.
The secret
That's
dream,
exactly
yes.
what's in the
right.
secret dream.
And became the screen on which it was projected, drawn between you and the truth. So now I focus all my time and energy on fixing and doing in the world, not realizing the world is just a projection of what's going on in my mind. And I totally forget what's going on in my mind because I start to focus in the world and all the stuff that's going on in the world. And that's a beautiful way to keep stuck in this forever, because I'm always running and chasing and fixing and doing stuff in the world, thinking I'm accomplishing something, when in truth, nothing changes. All I'm doing is pushing the chairs around on the Titanic. But Titanic's going down, people, it's going down. All right.
So, did you say that picture that
Yes.
you showed,
Yes.
is that similar in Buddhism to attachments,
I would say, yeah.
or is it?
I mean, I would say it can be attachments. It can be, the opposite. Well, it's any idols. It's literally a distraction from where the answer lies. Yeah.
The quiet mind comes to God. That's why we don't come to God.
Which he speaks of in this paragraph as well.
We keep ourselves so busy.
Yep. But again, as Bert was saying before, of course, we did what we could do in the world. I didn't have any recourse. I didn't have any other choices. So of course I did what I could to survive. I mean, that's the no-brainer there. But this is saying, okay, guys, you've come to this point, you've developed your good little ego in the world, but now we're going to tell you there's another way. And, you know, do you want to take that other way?
So do the Christians have a concept of attachments like the Buddhists?
I mean, I would guess I would say yes, because like at Lent, you're supposed to give up the things that you love, and you're going to show God that you love him because you've given up the things of the world. So, I mean, I think attachments are just, whether we put a title on them or not, is just the norm of the world. The human condition. Very a good way to put that, yes. All right, so for truth extends inward, not outward, where ideas of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. So if you're trying to hide that line, and I'll read it again, for truth extends inward, where the idea of loss is meaningless and only increase is conceivable. So if I'm trying to keep that at bay, what do? I look outside and I play in the world. And as long as I'm playing in the world, I'm not going to find the answer that lies inside. Pretty tricky little setup, isn't it?
Sneak and do that fine.
Yes. And he talks about that, you know, loss is meaningless. Well, in the world, why do I look for things to fill me up? Because I believe I'm lost.
You feel empty.
I feel empty. So I look for stuff in the world to make me feel complete. Well, nothing in the world will ever make me complete other than the connection with love or truth. Do you really think it's strange that the world in which everything is backward and upside down arose from this projection of air? And I know I mentioned this last week, but technically our eyes actually see upside down. I mean, I'm not going to go into the scientific thing because I don't understand. That makes me crazy. But the facts are that's actually true. And I think, wow, look at that. We live in a world that's upside down and backwards. And again, how do I know that? That's all I've ever known. But as we begin to examine what the Course is saying, and we begin to realize, oh my gosh, the world is upside down and backwards. So the answer lies in a world that's right side up and not backwards, but that's in total opposition to what I've accepted since my first birth, and actually before that. So how do I bring those two back into balance, or, you know, shift to choose the other one? That's going to take some practice, because I've walked around my whole life thinking this is reality. And the Course comes along and says, oh, sorry about that. It's this. And we go, what? Huh? So we can't flip from here to here in one quick flip, because I'm so addicted to my belief system, to my belief in my body. And if we factor in the main purpose of our separation in the first place, the reason why we chose to do this is because I wanted to be God. I wanted to be an individual. I wanted to be special. So I don't really want to go to where it's normal. I want to maintain what I always wanted and was the reason why I chose it in the first place. But I want God to come down and make my world a little bit nicer so Mary Ann will feel better. And this Course does not address that. This Course does not adhere to that. This Course says, nope, you really want this, guys. And I'm going to show you over and over and over and over in these words on this page how to get from here to here. And it's going to be a process to get there. All right. It was inevitable, for truth brought to this could only remain within quiet and take no part in all the mad projection by which this world was made. So again, the answer is not in the world. The answer is in that stillness and quiet within, which means I have to slowly become aware of how addicted to the world I am. And then go, I don't know. Because when I come to the place where I really say, I don't know, I'm dropping my investment in thinking that I know what's going on in the world and what the value of the world is and how smart and bright and wonderful I am, or whatever my attachments are. And I, get kind of drip down to a little puddle on the floor of a nothingness, which is really challenging because I think I have value and importance. And one of the reasons why I picked this section is for the next couple of lines. All right, so for truth brought to this could only remain within quiet and take no part in all the mad projection by which this world was made. So again, we have to kind of get out of the habit of looking at what the projection is, because the projection is the projection and it will remain the projection. But I need to go back to what the film is that's causing the projection on the wall or on the screen. And when I examine that and realize the the film is guilt, sin, and fear, separation, and you name it, everything of the ego and the illusion, that is not what truth is. And I mean everything.
Forget about the film, look at the light.
Correct, right,
So to access peace,
correct.
you have to say, I don't know, as the prerequisite.
I would say that's correct, because you don't know what peace is, so how could you figure it out?
You can only judge, right? You
Right,
only
right.
judge, you can't, you don't know.
Right. And in order to access that, I literally have to remove everything that is not of that. And that's the part we're not too thrilled about most of the time. But that really means I really don't know. You
wanna
show me.
access peace, go to 189, paragraph 7, and he tells you exactly how to access peace.
Okay, and you could look at it from this perspective. This is the altar. Anything I have on the altar is going to keep me from knowing what the altar is empty. And the altar empty is the only way where the bubbling up of truth can present itself. As long as I come all loaded up, which you're going to do initially, you're going to start with that and go, Holy Spirit, I'm having this problem or this issue or whatever the specifics are. And then, wait a minute. I'm going to let this be blank so that you can fill it in. Okay.
Because the Holy Spirit sees the-
Well, the Holy Spirit sees the only picture.
Exactly.
Right,
I didn't say
That's
eight.
right.
right.
But I didn't say less than 189, paragraph 7.
Okay. So he goes on to say, call it not sin, but madness. So what, I'm going to stop there. So what he's saying with that, as you begin to observe the insanity of the world, don't look through the lens of sin. You're looking through the lens of becoming aware of what the effects are of wearing the sunglasses. Everything's shaded. Look at that. What a surprise. So when you bring everything of your awareness of me feeling guilty or me feeling anxious or sad or anything that is not pure love, he's saying it's not sin, it's simply madness. You're looking at something that's not even real and you're believing that there's reality to it and you're responsible for it. For such it was, and so it still remains, because there is no sin, there is no madness. Truth still remains as truth. It's only been covered over by this belief system of something totally opposite to it. Invest it with not guilt, for guilt implies it was accomplished in reality. And, kind of going back to what Berta had said earlier, we believe that we did this, that we pulled this off, that this is our reality. And how do I know that? Because I'm feeling guilty or sinful or upset or whatever. And I think which equals, I believe I am the home of evil, sin, and darkness, because I've literally covered over my true identity with a lie.
That's how we've walked around our entire life.
Yes. And not as Marianne. Marianne is just the screen or the character on the screen that is living through that belief system via that choice.
Well, who's directing that?
The choice.
The choice.
And as he's saying, if you begin to look at the effects of the choice, realize if you're saying you want peace and the effects of your choice show you absolutely anything but peace, maybe there is another lens to look through this and you will see it differently. And let's see, and above all, be not afraid of us. So he's asking us to take him with us as we look at the insanity of the world that's made up of all these adjectives and a lot more of other adjectives as well. And this is what you get when you bought into this package. This is what we ordered.
You know, we walk around all our lives thinking oneness could separate from oneness.
And we took that seriously.
I mean, that was
Yeah.
the idea.
That is
And the mad
absolutely
idea.
correct. Yep.
Here I am, all I ever wanted was to be noticed, stroked, you know, once in a while said a kind word to.
Yep.
And I couldn't even get that from God.
Right. Yep.
Oneness,
Yeah, because you weren't looking in the right place.
that's right.
Yep.
We had fun till it was over.
Uh,
It's over fast too.
And I had a note to just read this little couple lines. It merely looks, waits, and judges not. To do
That's it.
anything would make the error real, solidifying its existence in the delusional mind. So we're being asked to look at the insanity, or he said madness in that paragraph, of the madness that we purchased from Amazon. And it brought it to our door and continues to bring it to our door. And if it is not a gift of peace, love, connection, and oneness, it came from the choice to separate. And that's a very valuable piece of information, because now I can make a difference or a choice that's different if I want to. Now, if I'm still in a place in the midst of a chaotic situation where I'm just not really all that thrilled about peace right now, because I want to prove I'm right, or I want to claw their eyes out, or whatever it may happen to look like, then acknowledge that's where you are, and I'm just not ready to make that step. Either way, you're being totally honest with exactly where you are, and that's what he wants us to do, is be honest with exactly where you are. Because when you can do that, the day will come when you're in the midst of that craziness and you're going to stop and go, I don't know. And then the answer will bubble up in a way that is way beyond where you think you are. All right, paragraph number 7. And these are kind of cute. When you seem to see some twisted form of the original air rising to frighten you, say only, God is not fear, but love, and it will disappear. The truth will save you. It has not left you to go out into the mad world and so depart from you. Inward is sanity. I'm sorry, did I say insanity? Inward is sanity. Insanity is outside you. Yeah, you but believe it is the other way, that truth is outside and error and guilt within. Your little senseless substitutions, touched with insanity and swirling lightly off on a mad course like feathers dancing insanely in the wind, have no substance. They fuse and merge and separate and shifting and totally meaningless patterns that need not be judged at all. To judge them individually is pointless. Their tiny differences in form are no real differences at all. None of them matters. That they have in common and nothing else. Yet what else is necessary to make them all the same? So basically what this is talking about is, you know, sometimes people talk about this, the concept of scripts in the course. And, you know, we each have our own script, but the bottom line is all scripts are equal in that they're all coming from the thought system of the ego. And that's why they're all the same. And that's why as we begin to work towards healing with our brother, we will recognize my brother is, exactly the same as me. He's suffering under the same thought system, and we're all walking wounded in the world. So when he says, when you seem to see some twisted form of the original error rising to frighten you, say only, God is not fear, but love, and it will disappear. Now, the problem with, and those of you who have read through the text, you probably read that paragraph and said, oh, that's nice, and tried it twice, and then totally forgot that that was what he said, which is normal because that's how we are. But what this really represents is if you look at some of the original error rising to frighten you, which is anything that takes your peace away, and think, okay, God is not fear, but he's love. So I want to align with love which means I have to drop this story of the insanity of this twisted form that's flipping around in my world that I've attached to within my script that appears to be important. Now, since we're so addicted to, the shit of the world, there are specific ones that stick a little tighter, even though the truth is they're all identical. And the Course is so adamant of the idea there's no hierarchy of miracles or of separation. They're all the same. You're either at peace or you're not, which ultimately can become a very helpful situation because you can apply this to absolutely everything that occurs in your life. But initially, certain ones seem to cling a little tighter than other ones. Like if I break my nail, I think, oh, well, I'm not happy, but it's just my nail. But if somebody bombs my house, I would say, oh, no, that's much, much more valuable and important. But if we really look at it, I've lost my peace. And this is either you're at peace or you're not at peace. And that's all we're looking for. All right. And as he says, if you recognize that if this thing is taking my peace away or causing me fear, it has to mean I'm aligned with the ego. And God is but love. So if I align with God that is but love, then I will begin to access the connection with that love.
The problem is, if you're a Bible studier and put a lot of faith in the Bible, he's got you snowed right there.
Exactly. And the deal is when we walk into the room of the Course in Miracles, we come with all our beliefs and prejudices and concepts and ideas and whatever else you want to. We can't not do that.
Says, be still and empty your mind of everything.
Yes.
Why can't fear? Why can't there's got to be things that happen in our lives that cause you fear? I mean, it's just
no question about it.
So then,
but again, think about that one line that I read that one terror brought truth to illusion, infinity to time, life to death was all you ever made. That thought also brought fear, which isn't truth, which is not who your true reality is. So if in any way, shape, or form you experience fear in the world, it's an effect of having chosen for the separation. And that will be the experience you have. So if you take that fear, and as he says, God is not fear, but love, and I say, oh, I'm experiencing fear, I want to align with God that will represent that love in my mind, not the belief and the perpetuation of the acceptance of duality. Does that make sense?
No.
To you or to him? I know it's not.
About Russ.
Taken over by the fear, and you wonder, like you think, well, is everybody else afraid of this too? Is it just me? Go through all these thoughts about your fear. And then when you say, I don't like this fear, Jesus, help me.
Yep.
Help me to see this through your eyes. And then I settle down and I sit with that until I get a different idea. Because if I'm sitting in the fear, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just like doing my wheels in the fear, and I'm afraid, and I can't do it. I'm afraid I won't go out at night. I mean, I have women my age who there's all these things, they won't go out in the snow, they won't do this, they won't do that. So, then you're all stuck with that. But
those are simplistic ideas, though.
Okay, but this is as simple as Okay, so this is really as simple as there's an electric outlet over there. And if I take my finger and, well, I don't know if you can stick it in there, but if you put a pin in there, you'll get electrocuted, right? Everybody got that?
Okay.
If I take it out, I'm no longer being electrocuted, okay? The belief system of the ego is like sticking my finger in the plug saying, why doesn't that stop?
I need it to stop, yeah.
And I keep my finger in there. When I pull my finger out and say, I don't know anything, you find out that you were without that electrical shock all the time, but you kept your finger in there, which kept you from acknowledging and recognizing it.
Touch yourself wrong.
And that goes for everything in the world.
Lesson number 5.
I'm,
That's
yeah.
all it is. Lesson number 5.
I don't know nothing. Well,
I'm
pulling your
never
finger
upset.
out of the plug is I don't know nothing. Keeping it in the plug is I do know something. I want to be in control.
Yeah, you continually choosing to.
And I'm going the whole time saying, why doesn't God stop this? I wish he would just make this go away. I don't know why. And he says, take your finger, stop.
But you see how far-fetched that seems when you're
Well,
having.
of course it does.
Read the whole book and you've been here for a while.
Yes.
You're having a big problem. Your first inclination is not to say, God help me. It's like, what the hell is this now? And
Absolutely.
it's, you know, it's just that knee-jerk reaction that
Yes, indeed.
that's how the ego likes it, when we just react.
Absolutely. And what the ego will do is flip something, well, not that the ego is an entity outside of you,
Right,
but
but it's the
something a
idea.
little bit more below the belt for you will show up.
Right.
And the answer is always, no matter how big or small or how much below the belt it hits me, take your finger out of the plug.
So COVID was that for.
Many
world.
people, of course.
For the world.
Yep.
So the world had its finger plugged into the.
Yes, sir.
The light
We
side.
set it up that way.
Right.
We call it real.
Right.
Yes.
But COVID could kill you.
So can the plug.
That's a belief.
And you believe you want to stay alive. And you believe you want to stay alive when it very specifically stated, we traded off death for life. Anything that can die is not life. And, you know, again, I'm this is way up here. And most of us are not way up here to be able to fully accept that. But that's how extreme this is. And smile at it and go, oh, wow. So I want to stay alive because I think I have value and importance. Don't make a big deal about it.
So let's say somebody's plugged into this Ukraine war.
Mhm.
They're thinking, you
Okay,
know,
guys. Yep.
they're thinking that, you know, they're plugged into this Ukraine war.
Right.
And with Russia and everything, and they feel that, you know, we're gonna get nuked one of these days.
Right.
You know, that's
Well,
a fear people get plugged
Absolutely.
into.
Without question, there's a bazillion fears to plug into. They're almost unlimited. But do you want to stay in it? That's the question you have to ask.
So part of changing something in the world is to acknowledge it.
If
Because if
you
you don't,
don't change something in the world, you acknowledge the problem that's in your mind.
no, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is, let's say for us to, as a planet, to stop being involved with the Ukraine war,
Right.
people in the countries need to get rid of their people who are in charge and say, hey, you know, that they have to look at that. They have to look at that darkness, in other
Right.
words. So part of what we have to do is look at the darkness and then see the light, right?
Well, you
Go into the world and preach the good news.
right. But
Go in there and tell them to pull out their finger.
yeah, but you see, be very aware with this chart as well. You're either walking towards the light or you're walking towards the darkness. Always, every moment, one or the other. If you're walking to the darkness because you're going to fix the darkness, you're walking towards the darkness. And let me explain, I'm not ready to just fully walk this way. I'll be quite honest. But anytime we get pulled into the dream and make it real, because now you're going to go fix it and change it. As me, the rest of the world will do whatever the rest of the world has to do. I am now feeding and perpetuating the darkness and not the light. That's extreme from where most of us are sitting, but that is what this is really trying to help us come to.
And the beauty for me there, I had maybe about 30 seconds of fear around this train thing in Ohio. I become aware that I'm buying into it. I'm buying into it. And then it's like, that's what's causing all of this unrest in me, is I'm buying into the dream. Help.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it was like, no, I have no idea what this is for. I don't need to get involved.
Right. And that's why Jesus came to the place where he could be in the midst of being attacked, having his name hanging on the cross, but he was not affected by any of it. And as you said a little while ago, I believe his response to the people that were doing that to him was, teach only love, for that is what you are. Because he didn't see them as attacking him. He saw them as calling for love because they were aligned with the thought system of the ego.
Right, but at the same time, you know.
He didn't do anything to change it. And that's what really pissed him off too, because he was supposed to do something. He was the King of Kings. He just said, whatever you guys need to do.
Knowingness.
Right.
Experience that we are not our body.
Right.
We're not our identity or ego.
Right.
We are eternal, and we're going back home when this body dies.
Correct.
And
Well, but no, that's not quite accurate according to the Course. Your body, your mind will be whatever your mind is when the body falls away. Yeah.
Like when your body dies, say, with COVID or the gas
Mhm.
situation and
Right.
But and this is just from experience, but I've found that I put a lot of emphasis on the body. Because like I'm a very avid animal lover.
Mhm.
And so if I see an animal on the side of the road, and it just tears me to pieces.
Yep.
But then I immediately think, but wait a minute, that's just his body. That's not the
Yep.
animal. Animal is
Right.
fine.
Yep.
And so I think when we get to a place, and I'm not there, but when we truly believe and know and experience that we are not our bodies.
Well, when we
do
truly
go
do,
on.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that death, there is no death. I mean, there's death of the body, but we won't die. We'll go on like we are,
Right.
without a body.
Right. Yeah.
We'll go.
Exactly. And that's where this Course is
And it's
helping
hard
to lead us to. Yes. And I would say,
Fear's helpful.
well-
Fear's helpful, like if a bear's coming at you,
the survival.
you kick your survival instinct. kicked in.
this
So-
is not saying that fear or not fear is bad. It's saying, and there are people that a bear could be chasing them and they would be totally at peace and they would not be affected by what I would be affected by if a bear was chasing me. The fear comes from this thought system. When you're aligned with this thought system, fear is not one of the words in its dictionary. But as long as I believe in the illusion, run, Jason, run. Yes. Or anything else that's happening in the world. But, I give the example often of the idea of if your roof is leaking in your kitchen, you're going to go out and buy a mop and mop up that water because somebody could fall and trip on the water or whatever. But you need to go fix the roof. But it's the fixing of the roof that's going to heal your mind. In the meantime, if you feel inclined to send money to any, situations that are going out or help somebody or whatever, do it. Like keep healing the mind, fixing the roof. And then eventually you won't have to mop all this stuff because you're healed. Okay, but in the meantime, do what you have to do in the world.
It's the state of the mind that we want. to be.
Yes, it always has to do with the mind. It doesn't really have to do with the body.
Of course,
And
it's
is-
just asking us to be aware of what we're
Correct.
experiencing. That's
Correct.
all, period.
Yes.
I mean, I have a question.
Yep.
If you could check the manuscript, but, if we rewind quite a ways now, because I've been trying to be patient. You said there is no hierarchy to peace.
Okay.
I thought that was there is no hierarchy to illusions.
Okay.
don't see a
You're right.
hierarchy
You're
to
right.
peace.
It was in illusions, there's no hierarchy. Because you're either at peace, which is not part of the illusion, or you're in the illusion lacking the peace.
And then as it relates to this conversation, thank you. What Jason's talking about, I mean, I really believe that governments supported by the media want you to be fearful because they know if they can keep you afraid, you're easier to control.
Absolutely.
Okay,
You are.
but
You are.
Absent-
But in the question we each have to ask ourselves, am I feeding into the fear as a result of aligning with the ego, which will always feed into the fear? Or am I going to take that fear and go, oh, wait a minute, God is not fear, but love. I want to align with what love is. And every moment of your day that you become aware, oh, there I go down the road to fear. Wait a minute, I have another choice here.
That, and I
Yeah.
get it. And the
Yeah.
only resolution that I've been able to come up with for myself is to shut it off. I have to ignore, I
Okay.
can't do anything about Ukraine.
Right.
It negatively impacts my being if I concentrate on it.
Yep.
I had the same experience with the train wreck as,
Sure. Rose, I know.
did. I mean, I became aware of it and then
And that's all we're asked to
Yes,
do.
yeah.
You know,
Right.
because it's, you know, just what Marianne is saying, the fear isn't coming from what's going on out here. It's coming from my interpretation of it, which is the ego thought system.
And it's helpful because it gets my attention.
Yes,
It's a flag saying.
Yeah.
Hold on
yes,
tight.
Yep, yep.
And the-
that time
right.
lets me make the other choice.
Yes.
Or even, or just being open to the other choice.
Wait.
I don't
Correct.
Just
wait.
we don't have to decide.
And before you say that, I want to just respond to her. And the course has a section that specifically states that whatever that is in the world, whether it be another person, the news, whatever, is our salvation.
Right.
Because that is showing me what's going on in my mind. Because if I can be disrupted with my peace, then this is what the problem is. And that, if I use that as a purpose of undoing it, is my way home.
We see it usually as an obstacle.
Yes, but
But
it's,
it is also a gift. It is the opening
yes,
to make.
to the
another choice.
possibility of healing,
And
correct,
that's
yeah.
its only purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and if your
Um,
mind is healed, then you won't be triggered.
Absolutely,
You could expose yourself to the exact same stuff
absolutely,
and not be triggered. But what a lot of people do is they deliberately keep themselves in ignorance, which is also not the right way.
well,
And then
right,
you can do something about
Right.
Ukraine.
right,
Sure,
You can choose to do something
Yeah.
about Ukraine.
sure, it's not bringing up that fear.
right.
did you know that a bear can run 35 miles an hour for 1 hour sustainable? So the worst thing they
All you do is
say
run.
that you can do if you
Mhm.
run bear in the woods is you're
Yep.
supposed to stand still
And pretend you're
scream,
dead.
yell, and
No.
growl at that bear. Now, so what does that mean? Fear will almost always make you do the wrong thing.
Right,
Always.
But picture yourself in the woods facing bear.
yep, Yeah.
Intellectually, I have this information and I know it.
Right. And be very aware, my body has been programmed to run from the bear. It's been programmed. So the undoing of the programming is every time a tiny little fear comes up and I choose this, I'm developing the awareness of this, and this is falling away. And one day I could be by that bear and it would not.
You say 35 miles an hour?
That's for an hour about.
Jesus, I couldn't out there. Be dead.
No, if you run from the bear.
Yeah, you're not supposed to run.
You're dead, for sure.
And
The
they-
only chance you stand is to confront it.
Yeah.
Or play dead, I heard.
Yeah, I've heard play dead
No,
too.
not do anything to it, because it's gonna come out, you just go play dead. That's what
Depends
I'm
on how
saying.
hungry it is.
Well, yeah, or if you're in between the mama bear and the baby bear, they usually get pretty unkind.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You're projecting
That's a moot point.
energy.
And we really can't underestimate the power of the projection. I mean, it's everywhere, people. It's everywhere.
And falling into it just makes it worse.
Well,
Well, how
yeah,
many times have you had a person say, well, hey, wait a minute, is there something wrong? You haven't said anything, you
Right.
haven't done anything,
right.
but you're projecting this energy.
Yep, yep.
And I mean,
But again, it's automatic. As a result of that choice, it can't not project out. Because again, it's just like the projector. There's a light, you put the film in here, the film is going to project everywhere you turn. Take the film out, then you see only light.
And you have to say, I would like to see differently, help me.
Mhm.
I would like that. That would be my preference right now, what I want.
Right, which is the same as God is fear, but God is fear, but, or excuse me, God is not fear, but love. You're switching the channel.
I want to know how, if I feel bad, help me to see this differently. I want to know that. And
Yep.
stick with that for a while.
Help me see through your eyes, Father.
well, you're making an excellent point. Take the film out. I mean, it sounds so simple.
Oh, I'm not saying it's simple.
Yeah,
In fact, the
I-
course says it's
I-
simple, but not easy, and
Yeah,
I get
I
that.
mean, tracing that
Yeah.
script.
This
Yeah.
one is that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I know,
It's actually easier with the bear, because you just wouldn't, you don't have, very clearly, sure, you have two options, run or stay, and just pretend, keep asking, and hopefully at least, I mean, you don't really have many choices with the bear.
It's a dream and you don't believe it's a dream,
right,
but if you ask the Father to help you
Right,
and have faith that he will help you, the
right.
bear will turn around. and go,
Connection with the bear, I mean, I just like the meeting.
right, right.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but it will work.
Fundamentally, that's what we're attempting to do, is to remove the film.
Absolutely. But being aware, part of that film is me. And see, I'm not real thrilled about that. And I know many of you know this story because I've shared it before, but Ken used to put a chart like this, similar to this on the board. And at the end of the class, he'd start erasing it. And I mean, I could feel internally, don't be erasing me, dude. I mean, I knew that that represented who I thought I was, and I wasn't ready to let go of that. So you can't force yourself to do this. You can slowly, with every little willingness, drop this and become more aligned with this. And then this starts to fade away until finally that last trip over here, why wouldn't I? What do I care what happens to my body? Because I know I'm not this body. I am this mind.
You know,
And
the
again,
problem-
it's not this, it's this. Yeah.
The biggest problem is our resistance to do
Sure.
what it asks us to do.
Well, but for me, Harvey, and I would say the resistance is ultimately correct, but for the beginning, we don't even know what we've done. We have no clue. We're just like walking around in the dark and but as you become aware, the investment I have in what I am invested in, it out screams that that's still silence. Yeah,
But we're operating from a split mind. And
exactly.
part of us really wants to do.
Well,
what you're suggesting.
yeah, and
But
part of
the
me,
greater part that says, no, not right now.
Well, it's only greater because I'm giving it the power to be
Exactly.
greater.
Exactly.
It really isn't, it's
We have
nothing,
resistance against it.
right?
And of course, it all involves this.
Yep.
That if the world is over long ago, where does that leave me? I'm over.
long ago,
You
yeah.
also have to accept that you have a split mind. That you,
That's it, right.
otherwise you're gonna judge yourself back and forth.
Well, which we do, that's kind of
do that
normal too.
anyway.
Yeah.
You're right.
Who would I be if I had amnesia? I think there's a part of that that scares me.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah,
Erase what's going on.
right.
I mean, are you kidding
You
me?
do have amnesia. Because the ego is available for us to have us forget what we did.
Absolutely.
Couple of nights ago, I asked, the Holy Spirit to stand my down a little bit, because it just seems like if I could just remember a little bit more from before we, came
Yeah,
here.
but we're choosing not to remember.
Right.
There's that part of everything that actually.
Yes, you're still in that moment. Yeah, and I guess the whole point of having these experiences that, have enough of it and finally you say, okay, I don't like this.
Yeah.
What, is there another way?
That's what does it.
Or where am I? Or why do I have to listen to everybody else's crap when I've been having all these experiences? I just want to know, and you go, well, that didn't work either. So then that's how we all got here. We decided something out there wasn't working correctly,
Correct.
but we come here and see if we had a better idea.
We thought there's gotta be a better way.
Be a better way. Yeah. So.
Believe me, Bill wasn't the only one that thought that way.
No,
Right.
nope.
There's gotta be.
Yep.
I think everybody probably does.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you're right. Right.
Everybody's looking.
Or they
Yeah.
wonder,
That's
like,
why
what
they're
is
in, that's
it?
why you have addicts. You have
Oh,
alcoholics.
sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
this world is not a pretty place.
Might have Putin, Ukraine. Everybody's looking.
Yeah.
Looking. No.
Right, they're just, they're misguided, that's all that's
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
And I'm misguided when I'm believing in that thought system, that's all
Right,
that's happening,
right.
I'm listening to the wrong teacher.
Right.
That's all that's happening. I had a very helpful example a couple of nights ago. I was walking with another course student. He was upset from the get-go. Because
Imagine that
he
happening.
had the story in his head that there was some issue with the purchase of his leased car. And something to do with the title, and it wasn't coming, and it's been over 5 days, and I'm gonna lose my car and all of this, and after talking with him for a while, it was, well, when did you talk to the guy from the title agency? Well, Friday. And I said, and it's been 5 days, and I said, or over 5 days, and I said, they don't count weekends. And then he stopped for a moment, and then I said, and Monday was a holiday.
Right.
It's only been 3 days.
Right. Yeah. But
And
that's how we are.
And he said to me, oh my God, I made this all up.
All right, I'm just going to call attention to the last couple lines in this paragraph, because this really addresses the concept that, again, we think these are all individual, specific situations that keep popping up. And he says in line 8, to judge them individually is pointless because they're really all the same. Their tiny differences in form are no real differences at all. They're either peace or not peace. None of them matters. Well, that's what he's saying about us. You don't really matter. Well, thanks a lot, Jesus. I wanted you to come over and tell me how wonderful I was, and now you're telling me I'm nothing. That they have in common, that they have in common and nothing else. Yet, what else is necessary to make them all the same? Well, that's how you make them all the same, is to realize it's all coming from the thought system that projected out, and now I see all these things on the screen, but they're really all the same thing. So with that, you begin to practice by no matter what it is that seemingly takes my peace away, I can bring that back, realize I'm aligned with that, and now I can do something different. And I just want to end with a little quote from Macbeth. Macbeth's dying words, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
What to do about it?
Not to do about nothing. Yeah.
You know,
All
the
right.
crazy thing with this course, right in the beginning, I think it was chapter 5 or whatever, he asked us, you know, if we've actively chosen not to be at peace, Jim, in example. We can
It wasn't
just
that
as
bad,
actively
yeah, okay.
choose to be at peace.
Yes, and Jesus also has this cute little section where he says, you guys keep telling me how hard this is. You made this entire world with all its complications, and you're going to tell me undoing that is hard. We want it. That's why we keep.
Exactly.
Just like the, that's the problem. With the everything on it, the hero and
Yep.
the weight.
Yep.
The practice.
Hero and white. Yes, we don't really want this. This is not, you know, I like that. This is exciting and I'm addicted to it. You know, if somebody loves the roller coaster ride, you don't go sit in the corner. That will not appease them as long as they're addicted to the roller coaster ride. And as long as we're addicted to this, this will not be very appealing. But as we get tired of this and become aware this is not bringing me peace, we'll eventually want more of this, and this will not hold us the way it does now.
Make a t-shirt out of that, and every time we give something up, we could erase.
All right, everybody take a nice big deep breath because we need it after this class. And let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept with this into the minds that you've created and which you love. Amen.
You know, Marianne, wear any of those shirts.